I don't want to make too big of a deal out of this, but I do disagree with the 15B grade. I'd love to think that I could do 9B in 10 tries or whatever, but personally, it's not there. But all that being said, it's still definitely a hard route. I think that the way the route breaks down is pretty good for my climbing preference and style. And that is that, like, there's a crux pretty close to the ground that's the hardest, by far the hardest climbing. After which, then you've got like probably 80 feet of, depends on where you're kind of putting the end of the crux, but I would say 14A or B. So maybe 14B climbing afterwards. So, like I've known from experience before that with a route like this, I was going to do the crux one time. You know what I mean? Like I knew that after just trying it for a couple, like 3, 4, or 5 times, that I was going to be able to do the top, like, you know, after the crux on command, assuming that I had rehearsed it enough and was, like, you know, understood the climbing well enough. And so then, you know, once I get into that position, then I just focus all of my energy on, like, having tries where I'm going up, falling in the crux, coming down, resting, trying the crux, you know, again, basically just trying to give myself opportunities. I think what surprised me was that, well, 2 things. I got through the crux in the bottom much faster than I expected to, because watching the video and stuff when I was training and trying to prepare for it, it looked pretty reachy, and I was a little bit worried about that. Like, Carlo's shorter, but he has a huge ape index, and he's also way stronger boulderer than I am. And then Maddie's quite a bit taller than I am and has a huge ape or bigger ape index. So I was a little bit worried about a couple moves, but I was able to find some ways to basically do the movements differently, like slightly differently, like the same handholds, but like where they used the knee, basically I couldn't reach from the knee, so I had to just like use some feet instead. Right. But basically all that's just to say that I was surprised by like the crux feeling better than I expected, which I think is due largely to my training and being able to find like a couple slight methods that were good for my size. And then I was also surprised by how hard the top felt after doing the crux, like on the red point attempt. I definitely, on the one hangs, when I had fallen in the crux and then gone to the top, which I had done maybe 4 or 5 times at that point, the top felt like chill, and I had no expectations of like any alarming pump happening up there, but definitely did when I actually sent, which was awesome. I love the feeling of, like, you know, knowing that you have an opportunity, almost wanting to celebrate, but like tampering expectations and really like trying to remain, you know, focused. And it was just really fun. It was a really fun experience to get through the bottom and then to just like fight, you know. It was really, really cool. So
you came in knowing that this was going to be a low boulder problem. Did you gear training towards that, or were you already just riding the wave of fitness that you had from climbing very hard?
All right, y'all, quick shout out for today's sponsor, which is PhysiVantage Nutrition, who, by the way, sponsored Jonathan Siegrist and 50 other incredible climbers, from Alex Magos to Paige Clausen and Natalia Grossman and Daniel Woods. Basically, they're helping the best climbers in the world to level up their training and performance by way of nutrition. I love their collagen, I love their protein. Everything they make is science-backed and proven to enhance performance. Check it all out on their website and use code STRUGGLE for 15% off at checkout. I love the stuff. Let's get back to J-Star.
Yeah, definitely. So I focused all of my preparation energy on bouldering specific things like power. Most notably, like, the funny thing is that even when I was trying the route, I didn't have access to the video because it's like locked behind Sender, or I mean Big Up Productions, or I don't even know, Real Rock, whoever that is. They have like a paywall. So I actually only saw the video once when I first saw the Real Rock, but I do remember well enough to know, because Maddie describes a bit during the video, and there's like a pinch that's like really important. Basically, like the whole crux revolves around taking this pinch, And so I knew that I was going to need to be able to just smash like fat pinches. So I spent basically 4 weeks just using the tension board and using those, like, I think those fat pinches on the tension board are like pretty perfect for like tufa style pinching, or like, you know, it ended up working great for the crux of flex for me. And like for me specifically, I knew that my time would be better spent doing that than like trying to stay fit, quote unquote, because for me, generally, I can get the fitness back pretty quickly, but it's like the power and the strength that's the hardest, definitely for me. Like, and I had heard the boulder problem described as V12 or V13. And those guys, again, are vastly better boulders than I am. So that was very intimidating. So I was like, holy, like I need to spend every ounce of energy to get my bouldering up, you know, as much as you can in 3.5 weeks. But I did everything I could to get there. And then basically once I got to the cliff, then I spent some sessions trying to like just climb the top, like I had told you. And then, you know, work on the boulder problem as I had time and coming from the ground and stuff like that.
Sick. Yeah. We certainly don't need to belabor the point of grading here, because I don't know if I want to handle all the negative comments that I'll get on Instagram or whatever after posting it. But what's your just take in general? Like, what's your philosophy on grading, whether it's you're putting up one of your own routes and you're coming up with a grade out of thin air, or repeating something? Do you have a bit of a philosophy to it?
I think to me, it's more of an inner dialogue than it is necessarily like being influenced by the outside. But I think honesty is like what I ultimately strive for. And like, I'm going to be totally honest, I'm not always that good at it, because sometimes you really want a route to be a certain grade, right? And it's hard to see that in yourself, to see like maybe it's something you bolted, or maybe it's something you're trying and it really feels like it should be something, and you can sometimes get that in your head, and then you can have that inner conversation of like, well, I really thought it was this, but you know, maybe it's not, or maybe it's like took me less tries, or you know, whatever. So it's tempting to just go with what was said if, you know, it feels like, oh, that'd be a personal best, you know? I mean, there's a route that I did in a couple tries that would be the fastest I've ever done 9A this fall, but it just felt like, you know, that was a time when I was able to really be honest with myself and say, I just can't quite go there, you know? I think at the end of the day, it's more about the experience and the challenge that each individual route can offer than it is about trying to like tag every route with a number that will hold true for a lifetime and is you know, unchangeable and set in stone. I think that we all know that each route is difficult for its own individual reasons. Because I guarantee there's a route, you know, you could get together with all your buddies and all your climbing partners, and you guys could argue about the grade of Chainsaw Massacre or whatever, right? And it's like 3 people in the group are going to be like, dude, I get bodied on Chainsaw, I can't do it, you know, whatever. And 3 people in the group are going to be like, oh, Chainsaw is so easy. It's so much easier than XYZ. And,
Right.
And, you know, I think as long as we can always kind of like have those conversations with a smile, you know, that kind of shit's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to just like get into it and try and like, you know, have a bit of culture around this type of thing.